I don't know what woke me up that night. Maybe it was instinct, maybe just dumb luck. But when I rolled over at 2 a.m., the bed was empty. At first, I thought Megan had just gone to get water. Maybe she couldn't sleep. But then I noticed something strange, a glow coming from the bathroom. The door was slightly open. I could hear her giggling. Whispering, I slid out of bed and crept toward the door, my heart already pounding in my chest. I peeked through the crack, and there she was, sitting on the floor, her legs tucked under her, phone in her hands, grinning like a lovesick teenager. I watched as she typed, "I can still taste you." Face-blowing kiss. Then another message popped up from someone named My King. He has no idea. You're mine. I nearly lost it right then and there. My hands clenched into fists. My breath came out sharp and ragged. I wanted to storm in, grab the phone, and demand answers. But I stopped myself, because something in my gut told me this was bigger than just an affair. I barely slept. When Megan got back in bed, I pretended to be asleep. She nestled up to me like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just been whispering sweet nothings to another man in our home. By morning, I had a plan. I didn't confront her. Instead, I waited for her to leave for work, then grabbed her laptop. First stop? Her iCloud account. Megan always used the same passwords for everything, and within 5 minutes I was in. My stomach twisted into knots as I clicked through her files, my hands shaking. Then I found it, a hidden album labeled Special Memories. Inside were videos, dozens of them. Some were exactly what I feared. Megan, with a man I didn't recognize, tangled in bed sheets, moaning his name. But that's not what made my blood run cold. In some of the videos, Megan was wearing a wedding ring, and it wasn't the one I gave her. I felt like I was going to be sick. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Had she been engaged before me? Was she keeping an old ring for some twisted reason? I kept digging. That's when I found the marriage certificate. Megan was legally married to another man. His name was Brian, 36M. The date? 5 years ago. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the mouse. We had been married for 6 years, which meant she had married Brian while still being married to me. My wife was a bigamist. I sat there, staring at the screen, unable to breathe. But I wasn't done, because then I found another marriage certificate. His name was Daniel, 40M. Married 3 years ago, in a completely different state. That's when I realized her business trips, they weren't business trips. She was visiting her other husbands, juggling multiple lives, taking money from all of us, lying to all of us. After the shock wore off, I went deeper. I pulled bank statements, credit card records, Venmo transactions. Megan wasn't just keeping up appearances, she was thriving off of it. Brian paid for her car and her shopping sprees. Daniel covered her half of our mortgage, while thinking she was paying rent in their home. I was paying for everything else, vacations, gifts, the lifestyle she loved. She was raking in money from 3 different men. And somehow, none of us knew. I wasn't just going to expose her. I was going to make her face it. So, I reached out. I found Brian's number through some deep social media stalking. It took one call for him to break. "Wait, who are you?" he had stammered. "I'm Megan's husband," I said. "One of them, anyway." Silence. Then, "What the F*** K are you talking about?" 2 hours later, I was on the phone with Daniel. His reaction? Identical. Both men were shattered. We talked, compared timelines, pieced together the lies, and then we came up with a plan. Megan's favorite restaurant was a little Italian place downtown. She loved the ambience, the candlelit tables, the way they greeted her by name. So I made a reservation. 4-4. I told Megan I had a surprise date night planned. She was excited, clueless. That night, she got dressed up, hair perfect, makeup flawless, that same sweet smile she always gave me. We walked into the restaurant together, and the second she saw the 2 men already sitting at the table, staring at her, she froze. Her entire body went stiff. Her face drained of color. Because she knew. And all I said was, "Take a seat, Megan. You have a lot to explain." That's where I left off. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I do know one thing. Megan's perfect little empire? It's about to come crashing down. And I can't wait to watch. I invited Megan to her favorite restaurant for a surprise dinner. She arrived excited, clueless. But when she saw both of her other husbands sitting at the table, waiting for her, she froze. And that's where we left off. Now, let me tell you what happened next. Megan stood there, completely motionless. I could see her brain short-circuiting, her eyes darting between me, Brian, and Daniel, searching for a way out. Brian was the first to speak. "Sit down, Megan." His voice was calm, too calm. Megan didn't move. Her face went from shock to panic to something eerily blank. Then she smiled. She fucking smiled. "Oh my God," she said with a laugh. "This is a joke, right? Like a prank." Daniel leaned forward. "Do we look like we're joking?" Megan swallowed hard. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table, playing a video from her secret folder. The one where she was in bed with Brian, wearing his wedding ring. Brian's wedding ring. She went pale. The whole restaurant was watching now. People trying not to stare, but completely locked in. Megan slowly pulled out her chair and sat down. She knew there was no way out. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then, I slid 3 stacks of papers across the table. Marriage certificates. One for me. One for Brian. One for Daniel. All with her name. Megan looked down at them. And for the first time, she looked truly afraid. I folded my arms. "Start talking." She opened her mouth, hesitated, then let out a shaky breath. I can explain." Daniel scoffed. "Explain what? That you're a con artist? A liar? That you've been stealing from us?" Megan's eyes flickered to me. "Chris, baby, please." I held up a hand. "Don't call me that." She winced. Brian leaned forward. "How long were you going to keep this up?" Megan stared at the table. I never wanted to hurt any of you." Daniel laughed. Actually laughed. "You never wanted to hurt us? Megan, you married 3 men. You stole money from all of us. You built 3 fake lives." She blinked rapidly. "I was going to tell you. I slammed my fist on the table, making her jump. "Don't lie to us." The restaurant went dead silent. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Then I spoke again, my voice dangerously quiet. "You weren't going to tell us *T. You were just waiting to see how long you could keep milking us for money." Megan's eyes filled with tears. I had no choice. And that's when Brian pulled out his own stack of papers. Bank statements. Proof of her funneling money from all 3 of us into a secret account. Tens of thousands of dollars. Megan's lip trembled. "It wasn't like that." Daniel cut her off. "Then what was it like, Megan? Because from where we're sitting, it looks like you were running a **King scam." The lies unravel. Megan started pleading. "I loved you all," she cried. "I never meant to hurt anyone. It wasn't about the money." Brian shut that down real fast. "So if it wasn't about the money, you won't mind giving it all back, right?" Megan's mouth snapped shut. I leaned back in my chair, watching the panic spread across her face. She knew she was scared. **. Then Daniel dropped the bomb. "We spoke to a lawyer." Megan flinched. "Bigamy is a felony, Megan. You could go to prison." Her eyes widened. You wouldn't." I smiled. "Wouldn't we?" Megan started shaking. We let that sink in. Then Brian leaned forward. "Here's the deal, Megan. You have 2 choices." Brian laid out the terms. "She gives back every single cent she stole. She signs the divorce papers for all 3 of us immediately. She never contacts any of us ever again. Or, we press charges. We go to the police. We take everything to court. And she goes to prison." Megan's breath hitched. Her hands clenched in her lap. I could see her mind racing, looking for an escape. There wasn't one. She was trapped. Then, after a long, excruciating pause, she nodded. "I'll sign," she whispered. Brian handed her a pen. "Smart choice." She picked it up, her hand trembling, and signed away everything. Once it was done, Megan just sat there defeated. Tears streaked down her face, but none of us felt sorry for her. I stood up first. "This is the last time you'll ever see me," I said. "Enjoy the rest of your life, Megan. Whatever's left of it." Brian and Daniel got up too, leaving her alone at the table. And as we walked out of that restaurant, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Relief. Megan's perfect scam was over. She had nothing left. And for the first time in years, I was finally free. Where things stand now. Megan? Completely ruined. Lost everything. Had to sell her car, move out of her apartment, and start over. Brian and Daniel? Also moving on. Brian actually thanked me. Said if I hadn't exposed her, he never would have known. Me? Healing. Starting therapy, focusing on myself, and actually learning how to trust again. And Megan? She tried reaching out a few weeks later. I blocked her, because she's just a con artist without a con now, and I have zero sympathy left. A few weeks after the restaurant showdown, I was finally starting to feel normal again. I had moved out of our house, gotten rid of anything that reminded me of Megan, and started therapy. Then one night my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to look. Megan. Chris. I miss you. Can we talk? I laughed. No. Megan. No, we cannot talk. I blocked the number. 2 days later, another message. Different number. Please. Just hear me out. Then another. I made a mistake. I love you. Then a voicemail. I debated not listening to it, but curiosity won. Megan's voice was soft, broken. Chris, I don't even know where to start. I messed up. I lost everything, and I just need to talk to you. Please, just once. I know I don't deserve it, but I need you. You are always the best thing in my life, and I hate myself for ruining it. I'm so sorry. Please, just call me. For a second, just a second, I almost felt bad. Then I remembered what she had done. I deleted the voicemail. And for good measure, I blocked every single number she could possibly reach me from. I was done with her. But Megan? She wasn't done with me. About a week later, I got home late from work. I was exhausted, mentally drained, and ready to crash. Then, a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. My stomach dropped. I looked through the peephole. Megan. She looked awful. Hair messy, eyes puffy from crying, wearing an old hoodie that was definitely not designer. I sighed, unlocked the door, and stepped outside, not letting her in. What do you want, Megan? I asked, arms crossed. She looked up at me with big, teary eyes. Chris, I have nowhere else to go. Not my problem. She bit her lip. I just need a place to stay, just for a little while. Please. I laughed in her face. Are you King serious? Tears welled up in her eyes. I lost everything. I thought Daniel would take me back, but he changed his number. Brian won't even speak to me. My friends don't want anything to do with me. My family won't help. I'm living in a motel, Chris. You still here? So, let me get this straight, I said. You lied, cheated, and scammed 3 different men for years, and now that it's all blown up, you want me to take care of you? She nodded desperately. I don't have anyone else. Good, I said, stepping back inside. Now leave. And I slammed the door in her face. I could hear her sobbing on the other side. Didn't care. I locked the door and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to my car covered in notes. Handwritten letters, taped all over the windows. I ripped one off and read it. Chris, I'm so sorry. Please just talk to me. I love you. I need you. I don't know what to do. Please. Nope. I gathered them all, walked to the trash can, and tossed them. Later that day, I went to the leasing office of my apartment complex and told them I needed extra security measures. I also let my lawyer know that if Megan showed up again, I'd be filing for a restraining order. That was the last time I ever saw her. Megan? Completely ruined. After losing all 3 marriages, all the stolen money, and her reputation, she's living in a dingy motel, jobless and desperate. Brian? Happily dating someone new. He told me he's never been happier, now that he's free of Megan's lies. Daniel? Moved states. He wanted a fresh start, far away from Megan's mess. Me? Finally healing. For the first time in years, I'm living for myself. No lies. No betrayal. No wondering where Megan is when she's on a work trip. And honestly, it feels amazing. Megan made her choice. And now, she's the only one who has to live with it. This will probably be my last update. There's nothing left to say. Megan thought she could play 3 men at once. But in the end, she lost all of us. And I have 0 regrets. So to Megan, wherever you are, I hope you enjoy sleeping in the bed you made. because you'll be lying in it alone.